Hey guys, Hailey Lain, aka Key Black here with another episode of Off the Cuff. I was going to talk about a different story this time, but I realized that I only really got through the radio drama section of talking about the Shadow the last time, and there's still some things I want to talk about with it. I dipped my toes after kind of doing a little bit of the pulp stuff and, finishing up the radio drama, into the comic books that were produced from The Shadow. And oh my god, I had no idea there were so many different runs. Every single publisher that's gotten their hands on the franchise has taken it in a wildly different direction. I don't remember who it was, but somebody made Lamont Cranston into a bad guy while Kent Allard was the good guy, but neither of them is actually a good person, so it's this is really depressing to read. But there was this one comic that I came across in, who was the publisher? I don't know. The writer and the artist was Matt Wagner, though. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's called The Shadow Year One. I had read another one of Wagner's takes on The Shadow before, called The Death of Margot Lain, which was very, very well written, and I really enjoyed the illustration style to it. I really liked the kind of classic noir take on the story. I'm not personally a fan of exactly how it ended. I feel like it was building up to a different kind of ending. I'm not going to spoil it if you guys want to actually read it. It's a fun read. I don't personally care for the ending, but maybe it's to each their own. I'm no writer myself. I certainly could not write something like that myself. But I really, really enjoyed The Shadow Year One, which kind of had a more optimistic take on the whole character, which was much more tongue-in-cheek. Basically, the setup is Kent Allard returns from overseas after studying to basically become the kind of man who would become the Shadow. He's, I think, just come back from Shambhala, or I forget exactly where he studied in this version of it. Sometimes it's South America, sometimes it's Shambhala, sometimes it's, somewhere else. But anyway, he's just returning to the US, he's coming back to New York City, and he's kind of got that, yes, the stench of crime hasn't left this place one bit kind of attitude to him. And so I'm oh, this is gonna be fun. He gets off the boat and he immediately assumes the identity of Lamont Cranston. And then you're introduced to Margot Lain. And Margot in this comic is actually kind of playing the role of the Watson, the narrator. She's telling things from her perspective. Wagner did this as well in The Death of Margot Lain quite a bit. But she's talking about who she was previously. She was kind of this floozy type, this very deliberate arm candy woman who would basically go from wealthy guy to wealthy guy who would be willing to put her up for a while, and who's willing to put up with her for a while, until eventually she ended up with a big name gangster who was not so patient with her when she started showing a little bit of attitude, and she tries basically pulling a fast one on him, tricking him into thinking that she's pregnant with his child so that he would have pity on her and maybe put her up for a little bit longer. It doesn't go so well. He immediately has his boys try to kill her. And who should show up to save the day but New York City's brand new 1920s era superhero, the Shadow. And so, Lamont Cranston, actually Kent Allard, aka soon to be known as the Shadow, basically swipes a cloth off of a table, wraps it around his face. It's the pseudo costume for the moment. Actually, sidebar, in this comic, canonically, he gets his idea for what he's gonna wear as the Shadow from somebody describing Dracula. But yeah, he goes up on the roof, he saves her life. She goes, "Why, Lamont, it's you!" And he goes, "You are frightened and confused. Sleep." She goes to sleep. It works. He puts her in a cab and basically tells the cab driver, take her wherever she wants to go when she wakes up. When she wakes up, the hypnosis didn't work. She remembers that it was in fact Lamont, and she immediately goes to his place and kind of basically shoehorns herself into his life and becomes his sidekick after discovering basically his secret. And he goes look, if you want to be in on this, you're in on this. It's gonna be a pretty big frickin' deal. I'm serious about this. And she goes, this guy is both insane and fascinating. And so it's not only the story of how the Shadow became the Shadow, it's also kind of a love story with some noir elements, with also some superhero elements. It feels very Batman, but also not quite. I had a lot of fun reading it. I actually very highly recommend it if you read nothing else or listen to nothing else associated with the Shadow. This kind of scratched the itch of everything that I wanted out of the story concept. So yeah, highly recommend it. If you guys do want to check out anything related to the Shadow, definitely check out the Shadow Year 1. That'll pretty much do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll chat with you again next time. As always, if you have any questions or things you kind of want me to talk about, leave it in the comments, and I will do my best to address what I can in the following videos. Talk to you guys later. Thanks.